Hello, Siri.
Hello there, Richard.
Play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
Sorry, I couldn't find Scaphoid by Brian Dunning in your music.
Not Scaphoid. Please play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
Sorry, I couldn't find Skipcorine by Brian Dunning in your music.
Siri, it's a podcast. Play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
I don't see any podcasts matching Siri, it's say.
Siri, play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
I couldn't find Skipley by Brian Dunning in your music.
Play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
Sorry, I couldn't find Sleep Morning in your music.
Please play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
I couldn't find Schizoid in your music.
Siri, play Skeptoid by Brian Dunning.
I couldn't find Slipway by Mind Numbing in your music.
Damn it, Siri. Play the Skeptic Zone.
Now playing album The Skeptic Zone.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 211 for the 3rd of November 2012. Richard Saunders here with you from wonderful, glorious, beautiful Southern California, where I'm visiting my good friend Brian Dunning. Now, believe it or not, I am sitting in the Skeptoid studio using the Skeptoid microphone to record this episode of the Skeptic Zone. What a great crossover, folks. On this week's show, we kick off with a chat with science teacher Aaron Kelly Stevens from Wilsey Wood High School in Vacaville in California. He kindly invited me to go and speak to some of his students, take some classes, and do the Mystery Investigator show. So I chat with him, and then I have a little talk with some of his students. Following that, it's Mad Maynard once again, not at TAM this time, but at the Shonky Awards, the 2012 Shonky Awards from Choice magazine. And our keen interest, the skeptical keen interest in the Shonky Awards this year, was that they awarded one of their Shonkies to Nature's Way Kids Smart Natural Medicines Homeopathic Range. And to quote their press release, Shonky loves homeopathy. The idea of selling water for upwards of $1,000 per litre and claiming it's medicine represents the very essence of shonkiness. But convincing anxious or desperate parents they can use it to treat their children's ailment takes it to a whole new level. Maynard catches up with the host of the Shonkies, Julian Morrow, funny guy, and Choice's own Ingrid used to tell us more about the Shonky for homeopathic medicine. About time homeopathy was labelled a shonk. And to round off the show, it's back to the hot tub of truth. Brian Dunning's own hot tub with Brian Dunning, Lisa Dunning, Erika Dunning, Rachel Bloom, John Rael, Jen Brown, and our very own Penny for Your Thoughts, Penny Chan. We all jump into the hot tub and chat about skeptical things. Well, that's enough for me. I can't wait to get into this week's show, so while I run downstairs and raid Brian Dunning's fridge to find some bacon and eggs, I'll let you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Here I am in wonderful, glorious Vacaville in California at Wilsey Wood High School. Go Cats!
Yes, Wildcats, go. Yeah.
Go Cats! And I'm here with a very good friend of mine, Aaron Kelly Stevens. Hello.
Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. I'm so glad to be here at the high school, and we're in a sort of a very interesting back area behind all the classrooms. There's some generators whirring in the background, obviously doing some sciencey sort of stuff.
I presume, yes, it's our science prep area, and we've been lucky to get this building. Our prior building, I think the entire building actually took up less space than our prep area now does in our new building, so it's pretty fantastic. We like it back here.
This is a nice area for your teachers. We're seated at a huge table. This is one of the biggest tables I've ever seen.
And there's cupboards below it. Storage.
Even better. There's a whiteboard over there, and this looks like something out of a James Bond movie. This is the last time I saw something like this, it's like you can do experiments in there, put your arms in, and all the fumes get...
It's a flume hood. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, so our chemistry teachers don't pass out when they're preparing the experiments for the kids yet.
The last time I saw something like that was at Dr. Raichi's lab. When I was visiting Dr. Raichi at her lab one day, and she was showing me, wow.
Quite honestly, I don't use it much. I guess I could crawl in there and take a nice clean air nap, but that would be all I'd use it for biology.
It's quite big. You could almost fit in there, I think.
Well, I'm quite small, so I think I could.
Now, I'm so happy to be here. You've kindly invited me here today to give a talk to some of your students. In fact, I'm going to be speaking to one or two classes.
2 class periods, and then your presentation in the library after school.
Yeah, and I'm doing sort of my half of the Mystery Investigators program. I sort of wing it a little bit. It's normally a 2-person show. I do it with Dr. Rachel, my good friend Ian Bryce. They take turns, but I can sort of get by. And we're going to do water divining, and we're going to do memory tests and pareidolia. I don't remember because I did this here a couple of years ago, pareidolia, where you see faces in random shapes and things like that.
I don't know if we did that, but you had the picture of, I think, one of the princes, where his Prince of England, where his face was side up and upside down.
Oh, that one, yeah.
A couple of other things that would mess with your eyes.
Yes,
so,
optical illusions. Well,
yes,
that was Prince William. He's out of the show at the moment. Because back home I use our Prime Minister, which is Julia Gillard, which works well, because all the kids know. But I've put in...
Yeah, you'd have to use Lady Gaga or something here.
Lady Gaga. Well, I've done better. I've put in Barack Obama.
Oh, okay.
So he's going to be the one whose face gets turned upside down in the presentation today. I found a great picture of President Obama, huge smile, and I've changed the smile, and you'll see. It all works very well.
I look forward to it. He's got a handsome smile.
Yes, he does. He's quite a charismatic figure, isn't he?
Indeed, yeah.
And at the time of recording, it's still neck and neck, as far as I know.
As far as the media presents it, yeah. It's hard to say what really is going on in the minds of Americans, but as far as we hear on the news, it's dead even. So.
Although, interesting, I saw a report a few days ago where some group of psychics and mystics have foreseen that Barack Obama will win the presidential election. I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, that's an amazing prediction, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, at least it's only a 50-50 chance. It's not like if they'd have predicted what, because they're not the only 2 running for office. They're just the only 2 anybody knows. I don't know the other people. Probably should, but, if one of those were predicted to win, that would be something, right?
Well, today's date is looks at my watch, it's the 29th of October. I'll put it out there. I'll make a bold prediction. I'll predict that Barack Obama will win. There you go.
Yeah, very bold.
Who knows if that'll come true. So you've been a science teacher here at Wilsey Wood School for how long?
This is my 11th year, actually. So
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
As a bit of a frightening little story, earlier this year I was looking at the list of new teachers that have been hired, and lo and behold, one of my former students was hired as a teacher.
No.
Yes, I felt quite old in that moment. Granted, he was fast-tracked. He got through college quickly and, went straight into the teaching, but still it made me feel old. And
wow.
He still calls me Mr. Stevens. You don't have to call me Mr. Stevens anymore. You're a colleague.
How about that? You're getting old when those sort of things happen. I think to myself, as I progress through life, I know I'm getting a bit older when I can say to people, before you were born, yada, 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 yada. Yeah. This is what we used to do. And when did your interest in skepticism start? I guess you'd have to be interested somewhat. Every science teacher should be.
Well, it was like many people, it was a long and interesting, may be interesting to me. Long journey, we'll say that. I went to Catholic school for 8 years when I was a kid. Not so much because my family is devout Catholic. My grandmother was the most devout Catholic you'd ever meet. My grandfather, not so much. But it was a safer school than where I was going to in public school. So I went there for 8 years. And I think my first dip into skepticism was by actually a nun who taught me in 5th grade. We had religion class just like other classes. So there was history, there was religion, there was this, there was that, math. And she and I would get in these really deep conversations with the other 5th graders kind of sitting there slack-jawed. And I remember discussing, isn't there some, scientific reasons for some things like the Red Sea parting and such? And she said, well, yeah, that was very good, Aaron. And we talk about possibilities of, earthquakes or whatever causing things like... And this was a nun. She was very well educated before the great nun shortage, I guess, from what I hear. And so we get in these deep conversations all the time. And she talked about some type of a cactus or something that grows in the desert that could be considered the unleavened bread that comes up out of nowhere. And I haven't been able to verify that since, but nonetheless, it got my mind sparking that maybe they're just stories in the Bible and not just history. And so, of course, as I went on and on in my education, I started to learn more and more that there were answers for things that I didn't think there were answers for. I remember somewhere hearing that when a person dies or is about to die, the reason they see the tunnel is something like the optic nerve dying or something of that sort. And little bits and pieces like that clung to me, and I started seeing that, well, that's odd. A lot of these things that were in the Bible actually have a legitimate reason behind it, not something magical or mystical. And I also remember something that hit me really hard was I remember seeing a picture of a monk immolating himself.
Oh, that's a very famous picture. I think that's from the 60s, I think.
Yeah, and it's even a cover of a band's album. Rage Against the Machine has that on the cover. And I remember thinking to myself, now this guy believes in a different religion than I do. And he believes so firmly in what he's doing that he's willing to burn himself to death. I am certainly not going to burn myself to death for anything that I believe in at this point. So we can't both be right? The Bible can't be right, and he can't be right also. And yet his beliefs are much stronger than anybody I know in my church. And so there was a questioning of the church happening at the same time as learning that there was more to what's happening that we could answer with science. And so, as I learned more and more, I didn't realize I was becoming a skeptic. Actually, I didn't even know the term as applied nowadays until I started listening to the Skeptic's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm like, well, holy cow, I'm a skeptic. Right?
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe.
Yeah.
They've expanded.
Yeah, to the universe. I've expanded to the galaxy. Yeah.
There used to be the Skeptic's Guide to the Planet.
You can tell my childhood reading there too, right? As I read this, Hitchhiker's Guide.
Hitchhiker's Guide, yes. Oh, yeah.
I find it funny that also so many skeptics are into things like Doctor Who and how nobody plans this. It must just be something in the curious brain that gets there.
Oh, I love it. I gave a talk some years ago, a general talk on skepticism, and I put up as some of my influences Carl Sagan and Tom Baker. Yeah, I was 13, 14, 15, 16, whatever, when those old Doctor Who's were being shown.
Yeah, I remember seeing them too.
Loved it, and here he was, for the most part, using science, and he was a hero, of course, so he was always the winner.
Well, he had they have the advantage in the show of there can be science in the show that we don't understand yet.
Well, that's
because
true.
It's science fiction.
But there was mysticism, and all sorts of things woven in. But that's poetic license. That's fine. The show's not meant to be a scientific documentary.
No, it's science fiction.
But I'm sure it inspired a lot of people. I mean, like Star Trek inspired a lot of people. It's famous.
I was going to bring that up too. That Star Trek really influenced me a lot. I like in Star Trek that you can pose moral dilemmas that you can't do in real life. Particularly in Star Trek: The Next Generation, the way that they dealt with some of the Borg issues and the humanity of them, even though they're part of a collective, and it was very powerful to me. I don't know why, but for something, the ones with the Borg Hugh that they...
Hugh, I remember that episode.
Those episodes really hit me. I was like, wow, here's a dilemma that maybe someday in the future could possibly be, but you can only address it in there. And then you can have the things like what are they called, the Ood or something like that?
In Doctor Who.
Where they're...
Don't be rude to
the Ood. They've been genetically engineered as a slave race, and that could be a real legitimate possibility sometime, but the only way we can explore these ideas is in science fiction. So maybe that's why so many people in the skepticism gravitate towards science fiction, because there's these ideas you can only deal with in that realm. So
probably so. But in the last few years, or the last 10 years, of course, Harry Potter type mysticism and magic has been very evident, and that's okay. A very famous skeptic came up to me at a conference not so long ago and had a chat to me, and he was very unhappy about Harry Potter. And he said, "What do you think about this Harry Potter? It's teaching these kids." And I thought to myself, well, it's Shakespeare's full of magic and mysticism. Yeah. And I said, well, if the kids know it's a story, then it's just a great story. I could sit down tomorrow and write a story about wizards and magic and things that don't happen, but that's just using my imagination. I'm not once at any time saying it's real. So I was a little bit, I didn't know what to think about that.
Yeah, it is hard. Well, I think with Harry Potter, it's so fantastic that there's no way you're going to buy into the belief. I myself, I do like the Harry Potter movies. I have a hard time with the books, primarily because I was an Ursula Le Guin fan. The Earthsea trilogy, I don't know if you read that.
No, I have not, no. I'm sure some of our listeners have.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
Making notes right now.
I had a really hard time reading the first Harry Potter because it seemed like so much of it came from Earthsea. So I was like, But two of my favorite science or fiction writers, not science fiction, but fiction writers are Tolkien and Ursula Le Guin.
Okay.
What I like about them is they're very, very good about laying a foundation of a world. They make no claim about it being our real world, but they're consistent within their own world.
Yeah.
And Harry Potter's not. So I had a hard time with Harry Potter. It's like, well, you got the Phoenix here, you got this there. It's like, where's the consistency of of powers or whatever? So
it's Voldemort made it different. You see,
he just messed with things. So.
And another famous skeptic, I won't mention the name, but another famous skeptic I know went to see Lord of the Rings, the first movie, and about 40 minutes in walked out because he couldn't take it anymore.
The way they'd altered the story?
No, he couldn't understand it because, he was too steeped in physics, I guess, reality. And so suddenly these crazy things were happening. All right, I can understand that. But when I go to see a movie like that, my brain is checked at the door and I get my popcorn.
I'm in the world of Tolkien. I'm not in our real world when I go watch that.
And that's
now,
fine.
Avatar, on the other hand, I couldn't handle that. I'm like, somebody has got to explain to me how those mountains are floating. You can't do that. You can't just have those things happening and not explain how it's happening. Come up with something. I don't care if it's wrong or fake or whatever, but at least try to explain it. Like, there's mountains that's floating.
There's mountains floating. Obviously they're balanced between the gravity of the planet.
And they're connected by roots of something. I don't know what it is, but I couldn't handle it. Plus, it was like going and watching a live-action version of Fern Gully. I don't know if you ever went.
It was very much like Fern Gully.
Terrible,
I enjoyed Avatar to an extent, but I thought ultimately the plot was a bit.
I couldn't handle the dialogue and the like I said,
the evil humans and the good, and all that sort of stuff.
And the cowboy bad guy, and it was too much. I couldn't handle it.
We seem to be drifting off a tangent here. That's quite all right. Let's get grounded back to reality somewhat. Now you have is it a club? Is it a program? What do you do?
Yeah.
The Skeptic Club.
We have a club, and I don't think they would label it as a skeptic club. It's called Pure Logic. So the idea is that most of the time when kids are talking with each other, they're not really engaged in very deep conversations. And there are kids who want to be engaged in a really deep conversation. They want a safe place to do that. So a couple years ago, a student started the Pure Logic Club, and they're all most of them are very intelligent kids that are getting good grades, and some of them not so much, but they all really like to get in discussions and really talk. And so one of them came to me and said, "Hey, can I start this club here?" Another teacher said that you'd probably be hip on this, and I said, "Yeah, this is great." So as they've been going, I've been kind of guiding them a little bit more towards a more skeptical point of view of things, and trying to keep their conversations when they bring up a topic a little more grounded, because sometimes a lot of them buy into conspiracy theory and things of that sort. So I try to guide them. And this year I I've tried to be even more structured, give them some ideas. Like, well, maybe somebody should go research homeopathy. We had a kid who researched cryptozoology, and just, so giving them a bunch of topics so that they have some guidance. The person who originated it, he had guidance of his own. He had ideas he wanted to talk about, and he wanted a place to talk about it. And so it was his club. But he's gone now. He's graduated. So now the club needed some guidance. So I've stepped in a little bit more.
Okay. I guess with a name like Pure Logic, it's quite open, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is that any topic is open for discussion. Religion, politics, science, paranormal, anything that the kids are interested in and want to really talk about, and otherwise don't have a place to talk about it.
I can hear sound leakage from one of the classes. We're surrounded by all these doors. I look around, there's a door over there, there's a door down there, and there's a door back here, and they've all got students behind them, don't they?
Yeah, well, yeah.
So some of them, and your room is immediately to our left there. I think I can hear.
You can hear the video in there?
Murmurings from you. So that's great. I do like that name. I mean, one of the problems with the modern skepticism is the name is the word skeptic.
Because it gets misapplied and misused.
Forever misused or misunderstood. We have the global warming skeptics. We've got the moon landing skeptics. One of the more silly arguments put against me is, "Oh, you skeptics are so silly. You once believed the world was flat."
Where'd that come from?
What? And that's a great soundbite, by the way, because it's really hard to counter quickly. It's very easy to say. You could say it about anybody, You believers are so stupid you thought the world was flat. What do you mean you? Oh, you skeptics. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of the problems that we face all the time.
So you have to go back in time, several hundred years, depending on which realm of science you're talking about. That people have known since the time of the Greeks, or even that there were some people knew the Earth was round, but So how do you argue that?
You cannot counter that, especially if it's done in a live situation or on the media or something. You can't counter a question like that very quickly. One, it's a fundamentally flawed question. It's a nonsense question. It's silly. Two, and then you have to say, well, who do you mean, the skeptics? What are you talking about? The modern skepticism movement? Me, my friends. By the time you've even started to do all that, you've lost it. You've lost the thing. So it's interesting how those sort of things can be used against it. But yes, skeptic is a problematic word. So I guess pure logic is so, vague in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, you got the word logic in there, and what's pure mean? I don't know.
You throw the pure science club or something like that.
But it seems to work out. I mean, the club has been growing. It's our regular membership continues to improve, but sometimes we have upwards of 20 or so students in there. On bad days, even now, it's at least 10. We meet twice a week at lunch. We have fairly short lunch. It's just over a half an hour, so you can't get a whole lot done.
Oh, wow. It is a short lunch, yeah.
And they chose lunch because after school, most of the kids who are coming to the club, they're involved kids. Mm-hmm. They do things. They're doing sports. They're doing band. They're doing other stuff. So the only time they could meet was during school. So they decided to break it into twice a week. And sometimes a topic will take a couple of different sessions.
Yeah. Well, I was very grateful last time I came here and spoke to some of your classes, and then I did the presentation in the library. A little later on, you sent me a big envelope full of letters from students. And that was so touching to think that they took the time to thank me for coming, and I'm so pleased to know some of them got something out of what I was talking about.
Oh, yes. It had a big impact on some of my students who to this day talk about it. And in fact, the president of our Skeptics Club, Shiloh, he was a student who you'd been impressed with in the questions he asked.
The questions, yeah.
And he's a Catholic kid too, which is interesting. He's a very devout Catholic. The two leaders of the club, one's a very devout Catholic, one's a very devout Mormon. Sort of like the people running for office now.
Good heavens. Good heavens.
Yeah, but he... It really helped him, He was able to start thinking about the way he views the world, and he still loves his faith, but he's starting to recognize that there's a lot that you can learn from science that you can't learn in other realms. So
it's good to know.
He's a good kid. I enjoy talking to him. So.
Another thing that I remember is after I did my talk in the library, and part of the talk I'll do again today is the whole power balance thing. And I do all the tests.
You still see those around now. Whenever I ask students, they're like, that's just fake, but I like the way it looks.
Yeah, exactly. But when I left and I was walking out with you, there was all these students who were after me for
oh, yeah, they wanted to buy one.
I had about 4 or 5 with me, and I ended up giving most of them. I have one left, which is on my wrist at the moment, which I'll use today, and I might give that away. But they didn't care it didn't work. They just wanted to wear one.
Because it looks cool, man. Yeah.
That'll be one of the things that when you look back in a year's time, and you'll think, oh, I remember power balances. Weren't they around the 2010, 2012 mark?
Like a tie with keyboard on it. It's from the 80s, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All these things you remember from certain periods of history.
The nostalgia of power balance.
The nostalgia of power balance. The 20th anniversary power balance. It's even twice as powerful.
They still have the Power Balance Pavilion signs up, by the way.
I thought that had changed.
It's still up, but when you drive by, it still says Power Balance.
Really? Pavilion. I know. It will change because the Power Balance, of course, in ruins. But I did hear that they're changing the name of that, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I hope so. I remember I took some photographs of my placebo band right in front of it.
Right in front of it. I did see those. They were fantastic.
I couldn't help myself.
Well, it can't be too long now before the next period as I look up at the clock.
Yep, very soon.
So we should... I should finish my coffee and get my notes together. I don't have any notes. I'll just wing it. Just wing the first.
Once again, I'm having a hard time not laughing as I look at the little robotic person with the afro. Yes, it just looks like a little afro.
And that funny machine just kicks over there and into the distance. What is the refrigerator or something?
I believe that's the refrigerator, yeah.
That's a loud fridge.
Well, it's an industrial fridge. And, it's for science.
Well, if it's for science, that's quite all right.
Yeah.
We shall wind it up here. So, Aaron Kelly Stevens, thank you once again, and I look forward to the next few hours.
Oh, yes, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I've just had a wonderful time here at Will C. Wood. Go Wildcats, right?
That's right.
High school here in Vacaville, which is not too far from San Francisco, for our international listeners, I guess. And I've just did a presentation here in the library, and I still have some students. Oh, they're so keen, folks. I can't tell you. They're just... Hello, what's your name?
I'm Colin Davidson.
And?
Donovan Como.
Quentin Strickland.
Spencer Halley.
Michael Potter.
Joel Naranjo.
And you?
Diego Ayala.
And they were all here, and some other people who had to leave because it's over. I did some of the mystery investigators. And I guess you're all, hopefully, as I am, all interested in science and mysteries. Would that be a fair call?
Sure.
What do you find particularly interesting? What mystery or aspect of science?
Just how it can boggle the mind, I guess.
Yeah,
it can trick you. Your mind can trick you.
Yeah, it can absolutely trick you. And what about yourself? You're wearing a placebo band because you were helping me with the demonstration for the power balance.
Yeah, it's how people can trick you in your mind, and how that can affect how people think.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And what I hope that you saw with those optical illusions too is how your eyes can fool your brain and all the rest of it, which I find endlessly fascinating.
I like the face.
The faces, the pareidolia. Yes, of course, people can see faces where there are no faces. And did you know about the power balance before? Had you heard about that one?
Mr. Stevens talked about it a little bit, but so he kind of gave that away. But before that, no.
Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're telling your students about that.
Somebody has to, right?
Yeah, somebody has to. I'm very glad to hear about that. And are you all in Mr. Stevens' class, by the way?
Yeah.
So what do you hope to do? Are you all sort of interested in science, or you all have other ideas of what you'd like to do after you graduate? Yeah?
I like science, but I don't want to have a career in science.
Really? What do you think? That's cool. You can have
Air Force.
Air Force. Well, I bet you if you go to the Air Force, you're going to be using science there.
Of course.
Yeah. So it's good to get the more you know here, the more it's going to help you get into the Air Force, I think.
Yes.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It
is. Oh, I have so many ideas now.
I think I put ideas in their head. Well, you know the one I showed you about the power balance and the one that you took part in and how you can press down on somebody's arm. I meant what I said before. The more people who know about the trick, the better, because then it takes away the trick from the people who are trying to take your money away. So please, show your friends, but don't then give them something and say, if you buy this for $30, you can...
No more as seen on TV stuff.
Yeah, but will still see people doing that. And it's tempting when you see it in the malls to go up and say, you're wrong, it doesn't work. But yeah, often that can lead to people getting very angry with you, I've discovered, which isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you everybody for coming along again. It's really great that you did come along to see my talk, and I hope you found it interesting. There was a lot there. There was optical illusions and tricks with this power balance thing, and we ended with a video from Mars. So thank you for having me back once again.
Thank you for coming once again. Hopefully we can do this again in the future.
I hope so. It's been about 2 years since I was here before, so maybe in a couple of years I'll come back and I'll talk to another group.
How about next month?
You know, as much as I'd like... Hey, you want to pay for my FF from Australia?
No.
Oh, well, that's that idea then. So from Wilsey Wood High School in Vacaville, thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
The Hansard is a podcast of the monthly lectures run by Canberra Skeptics Incorporated. Each month, Canberra Skeptics provides experts in their field, ranging from science and philosophy to politics and national security, with an opportunity to present their views. You can find us at www.canberraskeptics.org.au. The Hansard, Canberra Skeptics' Record of Reason.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Please welcome Julian Morrow.
Thanks very much, Alan. Okay, now our third Shonky award goes to a range of homeopathic pills. And basically it was game over when we said the word homeopathy here. Choice experts looked into these products. Some of the products include strychnine and arsenic. If that worries you, you don't need to be too worried, because the level of dilution in accordance with homeopathy best practice, for want of a better expression, is 1 drop in 1,000 trillion, or 1 drop in 20,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, which is roughly the same mix of detergent to water ratio as a Samsung top loader on a bad day. The harm or shonkiness doesn't come as much from the stuff itself, but from the fact that it basically does nothing.
So our third Shonky goes to Nature's Way Kids Smart Range.
Thanks.
Oh, pretty good. Look, I'm just going to grab Julian, who's come off stage. Look, how did you find hosting the Shonky Awards this year?
Well, I think I was the shonkiest part of it. But look, it's a good cause. I like a bit of naming and shaming.
Well, yeah, and that goes on here. Normally you wouldn't want to do this because you could be worried about a touch of libel. It's got to be done in a careful way, hasn't it?
That's right. That's why Ingrid was on stage with me, because I was kind of freestyling a bit of defamation, and she's there to keep it on an even keel and make sure that we only get into the sort of trouble that the shonkies are designed to get you in.
In fact, you almost sunk the entire Australian Consumers Association by claiming that Apple had given them free products there at one stage on, and that would have wiped the whole reputation.
That was just a bit of a serving suggestion for next year's shonkies. No, but they do. They pay for everything, which is very impressive. And I must say, I just couldn't watch as those iPads and iPhones went underwater. It just seemed cruel.
Well, I was always suspicious of it because the famous podcasting host Leo Laporte actually had that done to his phone and tested it live on air and completely destroyed his phone a number of months ago. I was a bit sus about it.
It does seem a little bit strange. Any product or service that advertises itself as being invisible probably has a few red flags there.
Well, a lot of dating services are like that, but aren't they, really?
Yeah, exactly. I use a nano dating service. It uses microfibers, to keep me single.
And have you used any of those products? I've got to say, I've tried to get mould off the bathroom with little results, and it's come back close. And now it explains it.
That's a pretty shocking one. I mean, if you're going to call a product exit mould, one thing that you would expect it to do is exit mould, but apparently not. So I'm not sure if they're going to change the product name. to nothing, maybe.
Yeah.
I think of it as a homeopathic bathroom cleaner.
Maybe they could call it "You'll be back in a week."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Exactly. Exit the bathroom. Yeah. That's what it should be.
Wow. And so does this mean a brave new world of you forging forth with consumer products? Now, you're going to be out there testing stuff at home more often. You're going to be out there leaning over, listening to lawyers. What are you going to be doing?
I must admit, I do occasionally get a bit angry on the phone in particular. So I have moments of consumer outrage. And, look, I must say I enjoy the Shonkies. I wouldn't mind channeling it into some sort of future project, but I'm not sure yet.
I can see you're still angry about homeopathy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have homeopathic rage, which means there's no real rage at all.
Well, you have a good time here.
Thanks, mate.
See you again.
Good to see you. Cheers. All the best.
Now, I'm with someone who's very excited. This is the biggest day of the year for you. Where are we? Who are you? What's happening?
We're in Sydney. We're at the Ivy, and we have just announced the 8 winners of Choice's annual Shonky Awards. This is the 7th year for us, Maynard, and this is where we out the dubious, the dodgy, the deceitful, sometimes the unsafe products and services that are on the market for consumers.
Look, naming and shaming works. I mean, all my ex-girlfriends, you just talk to them, it works. It takes you off the market.
Right, well, that's good to know. We are at the Ivy, mate.
I thought it was pretty good. Shonky Awards at the Ivy. I thought it's a bit early, but I'll start.
I know, and here you are in person checking it out. This year, the products, the winners span...
There was no dating sites there. I thought you might have had some dating sites up there.
We have certainly named some dating sites for having fees and some issues in their contracts. But this year, 8 winners spanning travel, finance, digital or technology, white goods, and also fine print in some of the contracts and terms and conditions. Also health and food.
There's the homeopathic remedies for children. Now, it's not strictly sold as medicine, so is it that dangerous?
This is Nature's Way Kids Smart Range homeopathic pills that are marketed or as natural medicines. Yeah. So certainly still medicines in there.
I see. So someone might consider it medicine even though it's not officially classed as such.
When you're reading the labels, the claims say that this is for treating children with runny noses, hay fever, cold and fever, for kids who are agitated, who are restless. And some of these symptoms are actually symptoms of potentially infectious diseases where kids might actually be really sick. We looked at the concentration of the active ingredients in these products and we found that it's 1 drop in the equivalent of 20,000 Olympic-sized pools. It's not the dilution that we're so worried about because that's part of homeopathy, but it's the fact that these products are marketed to parents to look after sick kids who may, by using them, be actually delaying their seeking of professional medical advice for kids who might be really sick, and that's putting them in potential danger.
Now, tell me, are scamsters becoming smarter or are consumers not becoming as aware?
Probably a little bit of both. I think scamsters keep ahead of the curve, but consumers now have more information at their fingertips than ever before when they purchase. So using your mobile phone, your iPad, your tablet computer, you can do your research on the spot in a store, not just price comparisons, but you can check our choice reports, for example, that give you the critical information that cuts through the marketing spin, and that's the key thing for consumers to remember.
Okay, well, look, thank you for your time. You've got a lot of interviews up here, and be sceptical.
Thanks so much, Maynard. Bye-bye.
More scientists in Parliament? How good would that be? Well, you can find out at Canberra. There's a lecture by Dr. Will Grant on the 10th of November 2010. Time is 1:30pm till 3:30pm at the CSIRO Discovery Centre, Clunies Ross Street, Acton, in the ACT in Canberra there. Admission is free. We often hear moans that our current Parliament features far too few scientists, and instead it is packed with lawyers, economists and used car salesmen. But what would it actually mean to pack our Parliament with scientists? Would we really get better policy outcomes? Would we get truly evidence-based policy? In this talk, Will Grant will explore how scientists and politicians might work together for
for the best policy outcomes. More information about this talk on the 10th of November at www.canberraskeptics.org.au. And while you're there, you might check out the information about another talk coming up, the last Canberra Skeptics meeting ever, a skeptical take on the upcoming end of the world, with our very own Peter Bowditch. And that's on the 8th of December 2012 at the CSIRO Discovery Centre as well. Admission is free. More scientists in Parliament and the end of the world. I don't think the two necessarily go together. Visit www.canberraskeptics.org.au for more information about these free public talks.
Join us now for Drinking Skeptically in the Think Tank.
And once again, listeners, as we do periodically, maybe about once a year, we're back in lovely Southern California in Orange County, called because it's orange. Well, it is. It's orange because of Halloween.
That's currently orange.
Ah, I see. And I'm here in the hot tub of truth. I'm surrounded by so many skeptics. I can't tell you, but cheers, everybody. Thank you. Glug, 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 glug. Oh, that's
so, Brian, some skeptic bros of mine were a little jealous that I got invited. And I'm like, well...
Let's do the circle here. Let's introduce everybody, starting on my right.
Oh, me? That's Pete. Okay.
God.
I'm Penny Chan of Skeptic Zone. You know me, but I also do Skeptically Pwned.
Penny for your thoughts.
Penny for your thoughts.
Penny for your thoughts.
That's my segment.
There you are. And
hey, I'm Rachel Bloom. I do sketches and music videos under the username Rachel Does Stuff on YouTube, and I write for the Adult Swim show Robot Chicken.
And you did the lovely singing in Brian Dunning's episode of Skeptoid.
Yes. The Gypsy Queen,
The Secret of the Gypsy Queen, which was fantastic.
And she is coming up in Skeptically Pwned 2012 Mayan Apocalypse. I'm John Rael, creator, person of Skeptically Pwned.
I'm Jem Brown, other creator, person of Skeptically Pwned.
I sense some competition there.
No.
One of us has to die, that's all.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm Erika Dunning, and I'm just a person.
You're just a person.
From school, yeah. Future president of the United States.
No, she already has a plan for the country.
I think it involves polar bears. And we have...
I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com.
Where have I heard that before? And...
I am not Brian Dunning, I am Lisa Dunning.
Mrs. Skeptoid.
Looking saucy.
Skeptoid.
So, wow, what a thrill it is to be back in the hot tub, Brian. This is our third hot tub of truth, I think, over the years.
And it's the first one that we've actually worn bathing suits.
Yeah.
Really? Shh, don't tell everybody that.
Damn it.
Why do we ever start?
So, Brian, we can allude to some big news coming up for Skeptoid, I think, without giving too much away.
I am working at bringing Skeptoid to a larger market.
Ooh.
And you can use your imagination to guess what market that is.
I'm using all kinds of imagination right now.
That's scary.
That's all the hint you can give us?
Brian is releasing a sex tape.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
It's supposed to be privileged information.
We were supposed to be using our imagination.
It's called Sextoid. That's the thing.
Yes.
Next
Children
podcast.
Here, sir.
He debunks many myths.
Oh!
about how to do it.
No comment.
I saw him debunking that.
I hope it doesn't include a video.
I've been relying on those myths for so long.
Speaking of videos, and there are a number of people here in the hot tub who are involved in videos, but Brian, I think, was it last time I was visiting here a year ago, you, or maybe even before then, you won an award for Here Be Dragons.
Oh, yeah, it was at a film festival up in Portland, Oregon. And, yeah, it was like the Juried Award or something like that.
Because I, as my listeners know, last week I was visiting a school in Vacaville in California, and they, you know it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up near there.
Will C. Wood High School, and they showed the kids in science class Here Be Dragons.
Yeah,
cool.
Ever since the thing with Here Be Dragons is it was made by one guy with no clue, setting the camera up on a tripod and then standing in front of it. So it was like totally modest production values, but the reach that it's ended up having has just constantly amazed me.
My favorite part is the part with Lisa.
Yeah.
That's everyone's favorite.
My favorite comment on that was so many shirts. So many shirts.
For some reason, I thought it was necessary to change clothes in every single shot.
And you have so many shirts in that.
My favorite part was the Pacifico beer you were rocking.
Yeah.
Yes. There's the famous outtake from that where I put the beer up to my lips and took a swig.
And there's stuff in it.
Now, there hadn't been any beer at the house at the time, so I went out to the trash can and literally rummaged through it.
That was horrible.
And when I put it up to my lips, I got a mouthful of something.
Brian, you have a sink in your home.
Thank you for sharing.
You were just telling me recently how, and if we look over the hot tub, we can see your nice little yard here, how it's been invaded by raccoons.
Yes.
So I hope the raccoons weren't invading your trash can, that's all.
Thank you for that.
The raccoons come and eat the grubs, actually. It's been neighborhood-wide.
Interesting.
Citywide.
But
Citywide, yeah.
true story. We actually downloaded that before we ever met you.
That's awesome.
Is true.
Really?
Yeah, Here Be Dragons.
That's very cool.
Thank you for doing that.
I am honored.
I love the part in Here Be Dragons where he's talking about New Age energy, and he's running across a park chased by this blob of energy.
It's like from Star Trek, just like a blob of...
And Erika, you get a credit in that, I think.
Yeah, I did one scene. It was the part where it was like the monsters and men or sea monsters. It was when he was reading the book on the red couch upstairs. My job was pushing record and pushing record again to stop it. I was so proud.
Good enough.
Good job. You'd be surprised about how many professionals in Hollywood mess that up. So.
Yeah.
Rachel, of course,
hard.
your videos are fantastic. We were just looking at some earlier before we entered the hot tub and just laughing so hard. Your wonderful comic music videos.
I think they're comic. I'd like to think so.
And honestly, without trying to flatter you, I was there in the studio when you recorded Brian Dunning's episode, The Gypsy Queen, and I was just captivated by your voice.
Thank you.
Really?
She came in with no rehearsal, no practice.
I remember.
And literally just started on first take recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I listened to it in the car ride there, because I don't know if there was sheet music yet. And yeah, it's, I've been singing my whole life, and, I went to a really good college conservatory that had very good vocal technique classes. It really, really kicked your ass. So
you did sound
good.
awesome.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Lee Saunders, who's the composer on The Gypsy Queen, and who's a successful professional composer in Hollywood, he was very impressed.
He was great. His music was awesome.
Lee is the best.
In your life, you look back and you think, I remember that time. Well, that day we were at Lee Sanders' house to record that episode with you singing and Lee being just the charming, wonderful man he is. That's one of those days that is ingrained in my head.
It was really fun. And then we went to that amazing random German restaurant right by LAX.
Yeah.
Guys, there's a really good German restaurant
right
by LAX.
What's it called?
Oh my
God, what was that place? It was so good. It was like it was in Westchester. It's probably the only German restaurant in Westchester, I imagine.
That's probably specific enough.
It was so good. I think I had like a deer steak or something.
What?
That's right.
Yeah, I had like some crazy steak.
Yeah.
That I was like, whatever.
Now I have to go there and have some deer steak.
It's delicious.
Right? So many of my listeners, of course, listen to Skeptoid every week, and they'd be familiar. But if you haven't heard episode 300. The Secret of the Gypsy Queen.
The Secret of the Gypsy Queen. There's of course just the audio, which it's basically a fairy tale story about a little girl who saves her kingdom when she's the only one who doesn't buy into the pop pseudoscience of the day.
Uberscarf.
So there's the musical story and song in just the audio podcast, and also you can go to YouTube and you can see the whole video, which was illustrated by a children's illustrator named Jesse Horn, who flew in from Arizona.
Really amazing. Really good.
And you can buy the children's book.
You can buy the book as well.
Illustrated.
Yes. The Secret of the Gypsy Queen is on Amazon.com. Jesse did the illustrations for that, and it's really a terrific piece.
I love it.
It's a great piece of art, even if you don't have a little kid who will enjoy the story.
Yeah.
And doing that piece actually got me, because I've always been interested in like the skeptical area, and I just had like left it for a while. I actually was subscribed. I got the Skeptical Inquirer when I was like 12.
No kidding.
For a year. Yep, because I was always, from a very young age, like all of you started, I was really interested in ghosts and aliens, starting at like age 8, and then I started getting into skepticism, and then I left it for a while, and then doing that episode actually kind of started to bring me back to it, this world, and I really like...
And as you say, you've been listening to Skeptoid.
I've been listening to Skeptoid.
And I grabbed her. I pulled her back in.
How embarrassing is it for someone like me who thinks Brian is a complete dork, but I keep recommending Skeptoid to everybody?
I just voted for it on Stitcher's award.
Me too, Stitcher. If this episode will come out in time for that.
So, and the question is, and I've put this to you before, when is Here Be Dragons 2?
Oh, yeah.
Well, as you know, I've been applying for 501c3, which is the U.S. nonprofit status.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it has literally taken over a year and a half now.
You're still going the nonprofit route, huh?
And the government has the final piece of paperwork is in their hands. They've got my check, and I'm just
waiting.
As soon as that comes through, then I'm going to put up a Kickstarter project.
If the answer,
it'll be tax deductible.
Wait, you have to pay for it? You have to give them a check in order.
Oh yeah, there's a filing fee, $850 along with the application, and the application is just it's a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Hey Brian,
they don't just want anybody to have a nonprofit. Like you have to.
Yeah. If the answer isn't too boring, why did you decide to go the nonprofit route?
I've always been a big believer that in order to successfully produce skeptical material or any material, it's got to be something that people are willing to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I've always taken a very pragmatic commercial look at doing the podcast, and that's why I do it full time now, because there's barely enough listener subscriptions to allow me to scrape by doing it full time. I've heard from many people many times that if it was tax deductible, they would contribute more. Which makes all the sense in the world. And what I'm doing already meets all the qualifications. It meets the intent of the law for nonprofits. I'm providing a free educational resource.
Totally.
And so that's the direction that I decided to go with the commercial angle. I don't think that if I made it like you had to buy it, I don't think it would be successful. But I think that people who get behind it and who believe in the material will continue to support it.
I'm absolutely thrilled that that it's free. And the Skeptic Zone is free.
Oh, yeah.
And if people want to chip in, I'm thrilled and delighted, and I'm so grateful, but it should be free.
It should be free.
And do you know how many subscribers or listeners you have? Is there a way to...
More than me.
I have... Well, it's interesting. Like most podcasts, I use a company called Libsyn that hosts the files.
Yeah, so do I.
Because the bandwidth would be completely prohibitive cost-wise.
Yeah. Okay.
So Libsyn provides their own statistics. However, having a web development background, I track it all through my own web server.
Oh, really?
And the statistics that I come up with via a method I'm satisfied with are greatly different than the ones Libsyn comes up with.
Well, good or bad?
Mine are higher. Libsyn doesn't count a lot of the listens that I count, and
really?
It's really complicated. It's not simply counting IP addresses or counting downloads. It's people in neighborhoods served by cable modems, for example. They all look like the same IP address, and then some people's copy of iTunes will try and download it 16 times because it fails.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variables.
Okay.
What for the quality of research that you do is a full-time job.
It is.
You can tell you put in a lot of time and effort into each of the episodes. So it should be a full-time get paid for it. That being said, it's great that it's for free.
And I want this recorded, Richard. I just gave him an assignment for the Hollow Earth theory. So Hollow Earthers out there.
He bought me 3 books, so I
that is
no
more
excuse.
books than anybody else on Earth owns of the Hollow Earth theory.
I think the take-home message for Skeptic Zone listeners is, if you can afford it after you've contributed to the Skeptic Zone, with a few pennies that are left, send them Brian Dunning's way.
Thank you, but I never solicit my own donations on someone else's show.
Oh.
Send your money to
Classy.
I've been zinged again by Brian Dunning.
Always.
So I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a topic that you've debunked, but what's the topic that's left the most mystery still to you? Not that you're convinced it might be real, but is there any topic that there are some things you still can't explain? You know that they're explainable, but you can't explain them.
Very good question.
Yeah, it's the most common question I get in some form.
Really?
what's the occasion where the supernatural explanation turned out to be the true one?
Well, not true.
I haven't
as
come
much
out with, but yes, I know what you're saying. And really, there's many cases where we simply don't know, and a lot of them are something that was like that's me.
That's
Richard,
you, okay.
Squeezing me under the water.
I felt this foot hit me, and I wonder.
The second you guys start talking about skeptical topics, you just start getting it on.
Preponderance of evidence.
It excites me.
But it's true. This mysterious foot just was touching me.
That wasn't my foot. Whose foot was it, guys?
I'm trying to stretch out because I've been crumpled into a ball over here.
It was.
If I'm playing footsies with anyone, just deal with it.
Put
Are you ready for this?
on Richard's lap, and then we'll just make a web.
Here's the
all
lead.
right, let's do this.
So, Brian, you were saying.
Yeah, what hasn't been? I thought my question was like super unique, but apparently it's the most common question.
But it's a great question
answer the question. I'd like to know.
because what you're really asking is what everyone's fundamentally asking when they want to tune into a show like this.
Yeah.
They want to know, what's a real mystery. And really, there's so many of these, and it's usually things where all of the evidence was anecdotal. Like if it's a UFO case.
I absolutely agree.
Okay, we have no idea what actually happened in this case.
If somebody comes to us and says, I was in my backyard yesterday and I was weeding the garden, I looked up and a UFO flew over. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I can't explain that because
what do we do?
I'm the world's least qualified person to explain that. I wasn't there.
Right.
I have no idea what you may have seen.
I don't know if you're actually trying to pull my leg,
right?
Or you're genuine, or what happened,
Yeah, it's like earlier, Rachel, you were flinging ghost stories at us, and I'm going the skeptical route. I'm like, did it all take place in the same room with the same circumstance? No. Okay. Did it take place by the same person? No. Okay. Did it? I don't know.
Yeah, I have some pretty creepy ghost stories from various friends that, like, as a skeptic, I've been trying to find reasons for, and some of them I can, and some of them are very.
I think that's the problem. Though,
one of the biggest mistakes skeptics make, and people trying to unravel things, is the first thing is, well, did it really happen? This person is telling me something, but that doesn't mean it happened.
Yeah,
like they're telling me or it happened at all.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then you end up trying to explain their memory.
Yeah, and that's what John was saying, that that you guys all were saying, where it's all something you have to do with selective memory. Is what are they putting pieces together that necessarily weren't?
Yeah.
Which is what happened for the whole Area 51. The whole Roswell alien crash story was basically memories of one man over a period of something like 20 years.
Yeah.
That 20 years later, after that, he was compelled by a reporter to try and put together and piece together.
And it was completely different than the original story he gave, wasn't it?
Well, that's what's fascinating, is because the Air Force, when they received that Government Accounting Office Freedom of Information Act to investigate what actually happened at Roswell, they did a staggeringly thorough job, and they went through all of this one doctor's memories, and they came up with what he was probably remembering for every single one of them. And it's a fascinating history. You learn a lot of really cool insight.
That's what I love about your episodes, is that you end up learning things that no one ever considered. And it's way more interesting than some weird story or memory.
Sometimes the truth is more
is weirder than,
and sometimes
some made-up story.
Sometimes even the truth isn't the truth. Like I remember you did about the... was it frogs falling from the sky, and how even news and scientists completely got it wrong.
Yeah, and I loved listening to your episode about the Fatima miracle, because that was one of the things that I heard about.
Fatima
I was really mystified by. That was, I think, one of your first ones I listened to, and if I remember correctly, the main thing being that all the reporters' descriptions were so wildly different. If I remember correctly, that was one of the main points.
Yeah, I would say the interesting thing that I learned about that is that the popular version of the Fatima miracle, and for anyone who's listening, what this was 3 young kids in Spain, and I think it was the 1920s. I might be wrong about that.
Earlier.
Something like that.
Yeah,
okay.
sometime in the early.
They predicted that there was going to be some miraculous event, and
lots of people,
tens of thousands of people turned up. And they said basically the sun went into some spinning dance up in the sky. So that's the popular version of the story that we know now, and that many Catholics believe and accept as a genuine miracle. And it turns out that pretty much everything that's known about what happened that day is now the result of one Catholic researcher who was commissioned by the church to put together all the evidence in favor of this being a miracle. And so it was extraordinarily cherry-picked. He interviewed thousands or hundreds of people and included 10 of them in his report.
So it was like the early days of Wikipedia. The one dude putting out.
And that was a possible explanation that I'd never considered.
That's so interesting.
We tend to say, oh, well, what could it have been? Was it an eclipse? Was it something scientific-y thing?
That's a big trap, because someone will tell you something amazing, and you try to rationalize it.
Right.
And until we can look into what people were exactly what their
we don't
memories.
have enough evidence to
Yeah, you have like a little machine that pops something into your brain and
you
shows
can
it on
go
a
down
screen.
so many dead alleys doing that and make yourself look foolish.
And Captain Disillusion has a good episode about that, because he has this weird... Someone sent him a video of, it looks like a watermelon with legs, wearing a cape, running across a field at night.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like a security camera caught it, and then somebody else filmed a TV screen playing that with the video camera, and then that was projected onto something else. So it's so fuzzy and weird.
Distorted.
You can't... he said, I can't draw... Captain Disillusion just admitted, he's like, I can't draw a conclusion about this video because I don't have any evidence. It's so blurry. So I'm not going to draw any conclusions at all about it. I can't say if it's fake or real. I can't say what it is.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
And that's the answer to your question, Rachel.
Yeah.
Is we just
it's a good
so many of these. Yeah, we just don't know.
And I think for me, it's also like I went through a period of time where I was like really. I was raised kind of like agnostic Jewish, and like when I was like 14, 15, I realized that a lot of my Christian friends believed I was going to hell. I kind of like didn't realize that. So for my teens, it then sent me on kind of this religious crisis where I was really worried that I was wrong, that I was going to hell. So any sort of like kind of mysterious phenomena that involves anything religious, I've always been really fascinated by, because it tapped into my secret fear that I've made the wrong religious decision.
Oh wow!
And that I'm going to burn in hell, and that I'm going to really regret it.
Wow.
It taps into this like very deep paranoia that I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think you're alone with that. I think
I think a lot of people.
That plagues a lot of people, and therefore it's much easier just to stay where you're at.
Yeah.
Because, it protects you both ways. Really, if you think about it.
Yeah. No, it still terrifies me. It's terrifying.
The conversation in this tub is as deep as this tub. Well, it's not that deep, actually.
I don't know, my chin keeps going under, and then my nose goes
But the water thinks it's deep because it is rising.
If it wasn't for your knees, I'd be... This is a good one.
I wish I'd known you guys in high school. I would have been so much better at science.
Erica would have guided you.
I wish you'd been my
teacher. I stumped my science teacher yesterday about the correlation between kinetic energy and force.
Whoa! How did you stump her?
I was confused because kinetic energy is motion, but yet force is also motion, and the motion is motion, and it makes no sense.
That's why she's going to be president.
That's why because you could answer the science questions for what was the science poll, science debate 2012? That would be you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Force is equal to motion is equal
Richard,
to...
I want to give one shout out before we leave.
Yep.
Gotta give a shout out to my bromance, Gabriel Chalice. If you're out there, you're probably shirtless like I am.
Dear Lord. That was a good shout out.
Thank you, babe.
That was a good shout out. Thank you all for coming along to this first episode of the 2012 Hot Tub. We'll be back here next week for another one. I'm flying back especially. But I want to thank... Where are our clinking glasses? We must clink our glasses. And I think Brian Dunning is now selling tickets to the next Hot Tub.
Oh, yeah.
Clink, clink. So from the Hot Tub of Truth in Southern California at Skeptoid headquarters, cheers, everybody.
Yay!
Thank you for listening to The Skeptic Zone. What an interesting show it was this week. Next week, I'm back in Australia. I'm not sure what I'll be doing, but I'll be back in Australia. But we do have another Hot Tub of Truth coming up. And in the coming weeks, we'll be giving you some more hints about some exciting news from the Skeptoid podcast. Stay tuned for that. But for now, from wonderful, beautiful Southern California, in the very studio where Brian Dunning does his Skeptoid episodes, this is Richard Saunders signing off.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.